Broadcasting from the Symphony Studios in Marietta, Georgia, it's time for the Technology Harmony Podcast, brought to you by Symphony Technology Solutions. Tune in every week as we spotlight the very best minds in our industry. Now here are your hosts.
Hi, I'm Leo Dess, and this episode of the Technology Harmony Podcast is sponsored by The Inside. To stay up to date on how we are creating technology harmony with Symphony, subscribe to all of our content on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 23rd episode of the Technology Harmony Podcast, brought to you by Symphony Technology Solutions. I'm one of your hosts, Katie Galley, and I am joined today by my co-host, Vice President here at Symphony, Matt. How are you doing, Matt?
Doing well. How about you guys?
Doing awesome. So Matt, this is our first time co-hosting an episode together. Are you super excited for this?
I am. It's my first podcast ever. So
yay! It's going to be great. It's going to be super fun. And we have an incredible guest today with us in the Symphony studio. We have Director of Channel Sales at Alcatraz and host of the Innovation Nation podcast, Lawler-Muzquiz. How are you doing, Sarah?
I'm great. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. We're super excited to dive into your story, Sarah, and learn more about you. So to kick it off, can you tell us a little bit about your professional journey and how you got the job you have today?
Absolutely. So, and I'm sorry, I'm so happy to be here because Matt and I used to work together at my old company, Johnson Controls. So my professional journey started about 6 years ago. I was an intern for JCI, large building systems integrator and provider. And so I focused on electrical and mechanical systems, both of which we would design, sell, make, and provide to customers. And over my first 2 years, I got a lot of exposure and basically raised my hand to join one of the most prestigious teams within the company called Major Projects Connected Technologies, which is where I met Matt. Matt had been in that group for a very long time and had a great name within that group of Johnson Controls. And so I spent about 3.5, really 4 years within that group, Connected Technologies, where we did large scale building wide system integration applications, taking all your low voltage technologies, bringing them together, making the buildings smart and basically do work for you. And so I did that for 4 years and then met Alcatraz through JCI. Alcatraz was one of the, technologies we were looking at for Los Angeles Convention Center during COVID, once everything hit. And they had our group CT at the time kind of like go to the front lines with the customers for technology and getting all that put together in bundles for the end users that needed to retrofit their spaces to respond to COVID properly. And Alcatraz was one of the frictionless technologies that we were exploring. And out of everything we were comparing out there, they just completely blew me away. And so I did a tech dive with my JCI folks. And like that night, after having them present to all my team, they actually gave me an offer to come join them. So wow. I joined them and it happened in like literally 36 hours. And it was like, it was crazy because I'd seen, Matt, we saw so much technology over the years. I mean, people coming to us all the time, trying to get us to sell their solutions. And I'll tell you, it's like the easiest yes I've ever said. I mean, they came from Apple. The guys who started the company did Face ID in the iPhone and they just get it, they just got it. So I just, it was a really good, warm, fuzzy feeling for once with technology because we would have to take a lot of risk at times when we were going to these big projects and kind of take a bet on some new stuff out there to be really innovative and set us aside. And we didn't always know it was going to work. I mean, we knew it would if we were involved, but we'd have manufacturers come to us who are like brand new all the time and want to get us to go resell as the integrators. So this was a really cool company. And now I'm here 4 months in.
Wow. So still pretty new, just 4 months into this new role with this new company.
Mm-hmm, it's still very new. And I spent my whole career, at JCI. So, it was a big transition for me personally. I had made a lot of friends and coaches and mentors over the years, and it was hard because, I loved everything that JC had given me and I didn't want to leave, but I knew that this was just going to open a new door. And the beauty is now we actually just signed JCI is one of our first biggest partners, and I get to still work with them. So it's fun. The people
well, that's great. Right, yeah. Right. You still get to keep those relationships and work with everyone. And so, Sarah, can you dive into a little bit what each avenue that Alcatraz works with, and then specifically what you do as the director of channel sales?
Absolutely. So existing physical security ecosystem and how we have it today. You have cameras, you have access control, you have sensors, motion sensors, alarms, all these different things in the environment to give you a safe environment, protect a perimeter or people or entryways, whatever it may be. Alcatraz primarily is a biometric solution. Utilizing facial authentication. So we can authenticate who you are with your face template. So we're using like data points of a face, and we don't know anything about you. We don't know who you are, what you do, what you look like. We just know like little polka dots on your face associated with the badge number. And we're taking like a lot of that other stuff in the physical security realm and bringing it together. So we have a lot of technology into our device called the Rock that you've either already seen before or is new. But we're bringing it together kind of like the iPhone, where you have all these different things. You know, when Steve Jobs held his phone up or was presenting it, he said, oh, I have a phone, I have Messenger, or I have email, you know, I have a way to surf the web. And he kept repeating it, and people finally got it. And then he held the iPhone up and was like, here we are, right? Here's this one device to do everything. So that's kind of what the Rock is. It's an edge device. It has a processor built into it. It does all the computing at the edge, all the decision-making at the edge, with all that 3D technology built in. So we use 3 sensors fused together, which we have a patent for. So we're doing facial rec with 3D sensing technology, not typical cameras that are 2D sensors. So it's just pretty cool stuff. I mean, so that's what the Rock is. And so we can like work with any solution out there that's existing or new. And we are using AI, artificial intelligence, to automate all of the nuances that we're used to seeing with facial rec or biometrics, like enrollment, for example. The authentication itself is quasi-real time, up to 2 seconds at most it takes for us to authenticate you. So by the time you've already reached for a door, we know who you are. So it's really, really cool stuff. And then we also have an ability to play into your VMS. So we bring back all that feed of the video, and we can bring it into the video management as well in conjunction with the ACS. So we're really long explanation, but it's a lot of technology in one end for the end users.
Yeah.
Hopefully that explains. And then director channel is really the person who is here to support people like yourselves, like the Symphonies of this world, and really help get the product to the market through the right channel, the right lane. We don't want to ever sell direct, as you know, in our industry. That doesn't look people don't really like that. But also we can't support that. We don't have an installation team. So we really need to have the right partners to help us get out there, install it properly, certify the right people to be successful. So that's what I manage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of your clients right now? Like, what are some installation bases that you've got?
It's a great question. So first off, the solution was designed for very high security applications. So if you think about an environment where you might need not just a badge reader to utilize authentication, but also your face or your thumbprint or your hand. So we designed for the critical environment, which can consist of labs, biomed, you have data centers, you have high-tech companies, healthcare, really, really big one. And then you also even have some of those buildings out there that are like mixed use, that have like, whether it's residential, and you also have like a hotel, and you also have like retail, and just lots of different areas in which you have to like control or protect, right? You can't just get a one size fits all scenario. So like our flexibility of the device is also being received really well in that area of business, like in the commercial world, but kind of mixed use residential commercial, because it's extremely scalable. And of course, enterprise, Fortune 200 companies. right now, I mean, we've been, around for 5 years. We've been out in the field for over a year now. Even early on, before we were at our final rev, because people just bought in so early and loved the technology. So if you can imagine, I can't really mention specific client names, but imagine like the big four in every industry is looking at us right now and is either already bought in or is just starting a POC, but a lot of them have already been through a full year of proof of concepts at this point.
And so Sarah, I mean, you said early on those companies, it was pretty seamless to have them buy in with this technology and this advancement that Alcatraz is doing. But do you guys ever face really some challenges with maybe convincing people of the technology or kind of bridging that educational gap?
Absolutely. Every day. That is the best question. It's a real question. I love it because that is our life every day. Like when, we're not Apple, right? We're not just, we're not Microsoft. We don't actually have the biggest name yet, right? Like we have a name, we have buzz, but quite often people just assume that we are something we are not. AKA they think we're just a facial recognition camera, for example, or they say, oh, you're a reader. And once you actually open the device and you show them, hey, look at all these parts we're using, this processor on board and this NVIDIA microchip and just all this cool stuff, right, that makes the secret sauce. Then they start to realize, oh, okay, you're more than what I thought you were, but what are you? So not only then do they realize they're not what they thought we were because they're just used to existing technology in the market, we then have to educate them and help them understand not just the vision, but what they can actually practically do with the technology that they have not seen before. Okay. So it is a very challenging conversation always, unless it's like someone coming from like a fintech or financial entity or data center or like that critical environment. The average Joe or the pedestrian really wouldn't get it. And you don't always have like your director of IT running your security team or vice versa, right? So there's also that communicational gap we have between their own teams who have to understand what's going on. Because as much as we're just this device that you put on the wall, there's so much that we can do with the analytics and the data and the real-time information. And at times people may even be overwhelmed and say, wait, what am I supposed to do with all this? Yeah. So I think that one of the best indicators of when we have potentially successfully educated and opened someone's eyes to it is when they start getting visionary themselves, where we're in a conversation. And Matt, you might remember this from our JCI days when we go into early design conversations on the technology package, right? And we start getting them creative and they're like, well, can you do this? Can you do that? Right? And that's when you kind of know they had the aha moment of like, what we're giving you is not just a device, it's something to truly open up doors that you've never been able to open before, literally. You know what I'm saying? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, it's because it's interesting where you clearly have this, like you're saying, it's the bridging that gap of we have this product, but it can do so much more than you can envision. But like you're saying, it's getting in early on those conversations of the design phase and saying, well, can you do this? Can you do this? And yes, you can. It's just, what can you envision? What can you see actually being able to happen?
Well, that's the thing too, Katie, is that in our physical security world, we're so used to doing things a certain way, and like to harden a system, to make it safer and stronger, we're used to integrating. We're used to the integrator going to the field and he's the guy that put that together, and to keep that safe, no one else is going to be able to figure out how to put that together, right? Or we did naming conventions that only we know what they mean, right? Or just, there's all these ways that traditionally we're used to securing a facility or a space, and it's changing with technology, with APIs, software integrations, all these things we can do. And assuming you're doing you're pulling your cables properly, because the nuts and bolts are very important for any of that to even operate. We need the nuts and bolts to be done right. Yeah. In order for us to accomplish, right, a lot of that technology. But the truth is that once people realize like what you can do and how far you can go is when they get excited. right?
Yeah.
Because it's like a new world for them. In security, like I said, we're so used to just access control, video, some analytics now. Well, what else, right? Why not? Why can't we do people density control, right? Why can't we decide, like, why can't we make decisions off that, right? Like, why can't we know, oh, 11 people use this conference room on average? Well, do we really need 15 chairs in there? Maybe not. Right?
Yeah. Right.
It's very interesting the way that we're kind of paving that new path within the industry.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a long run, though. It's not going to happen overnight.
And so, I mean, with that though, like you're saying, having that kind of be the long run and settling in for that long game. When you said when you first joined, it was in that 36-hour period, you just got really excited about what Alcatraz was doing. Once you were brought on board and you kind of learned about the technologies and you kind of getting thrust into this realm, was there ever times where you came up against challenges for yourself of thinking, okay, what exactly is this technology? How am I going to challenge someone or educate them or convince them that this is something that is crucial and critical and needs to be discussed early on?
Oh yeah. I mean, there are times, of course, I know my team isn't going to like hearing this, but I mean, of course, there's times when you like make a change in life and you have a foundation, right? And you kind of break the foundation to create a new one. I mean, I'd never done that before, first of all. So like, not saying like, I'm not like naive in a sense, but really it's just that it was the first time I was opening a new door within my world of professional work. Right. And so naturally there were times like, oh no, what did I do? Or, oh, we are early. Or, oh, which when I say early, I don't mean technology. I mean, just like structure, like organizationally, right? Because I came in to literally build our channel. Wow. And I think that like even myself, when I sometimes realize what I'm doing, I forget that like we maybe only had 2 partners before we hired me. You know, that's like a scary thing, right? Especially like having one company under my belt and knowing to do things like that one way, right? Like I came in and I was like, oh, I gotta just figure it out and do what I think is right. But so yeah, there's always days where I'm kind of like, is this decision I'm about to make the right decision? And what I've learned is that if you can follow your gut and you make the decision and then you realize, wait, maybe that wasn't the best decision, as long as you know how to pivot, I feel is what's most important, right? Like being able to take whatever it is that you decide to do and stick with that decision. And then once you get the answer maybe you weren't looking for, is when you start looking for alternatives. Because if you approach one thing with like 5 different ways of doing something, then you're going to get disorganized, right? So for me, like I like to find ways to stay focused. And, you know, for example, like not only are we a tech company, but we're new technology. So why not do things new? So for example, we're completely automating and changing the way that integrators interact with us. We are creating a true virtual portal where they can go to DIY. You have everything you need right there. You don't need me, Sarah, to hold your hand to decide which SKUs you're going to use to build a solution. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I had to wait for pricing, which literally pushed back my internal reviews with my team. Matt, you probably know what I'm talking about. We had to get so many quotes for our jobs. And if I didn't have everything I needed at that moment, then my project deadline was going to potentially get missed if I didn't have everything I needed. And waiting on your manufacturers is the last thing you want to do as an integrator. So I'm taking a lot of what I learned personally from the field, from my other side of the table, trying to make it like the best experience I can if it was me buying or me, you know, bringing the product to the market, because I only know what I know. But yeah, it's crazy. It's such a not young startup, but small startup. Like we're 60 people and I went from a company of 100,000 employees to 60 people.
Wow.
You know, it's not just like I went to something new. I went to like the complete opposite end of like the scale of what you can do, right? Like I went from one extreme to the next, but it's like one of the coolest things I think I could be doing, because I do see a long journey with this company. So I'm excited.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I love that. It's really taking a leap of faith, I guess. I mean, you were with JCI for so long, but then seeing this new technology and realizing, okay, this is something I can get my hands on early on and be kind of a leader in this space and be a part of this. And so, I mean, in that journey, when you said, and I think it's just crazy, those 36 hours, you just decided to take that plunge. Was there ever a moment in that 36 hours where you thought, no, this is crazy? I mean, I have a stable job with JCI. I don't want to leave.
Well, I can tell you, I mean, so to be honest, no. And there's a reason why. So if anyone knows me, like in the industry, they kind of know me as like a bulldog. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean in a way where, like, as you guys can tell, my personality, I'm very like, what you see is what you get. And I put people to the test. Like, I was known back in the day, like if we had a technology that we were going to go look at, like I'd go by the rule of 6, which is where you need like 6 references, 6 installations, 6, referrals, like not just references, but referrals of people I can talk to make sure it was done right or it works. And so I kind of took that, and I learned that from like some of my consultant friends, which I know is maybe also like a more traditional way of thinking about things, right? Like when we look at technology, we also want to be able to maybe have a rule of 2 or a rule of 6 where you only take 3 references and 3 referrals. But I actually so what I did was, at the time I was doing technology discovery calls with my JCI team, and I invite like 40 people from the West Coast or just all over the US, or any person that I was connected to who was like a Yoda of mine, whether they were a technical Yoda or a personal Yoda, to come to the table with me to vet the tech together. And I was doing that in a series format because during COVID, I swear to you, I had companies come to me that were like 100 years old that never did anything with thermal sensing, for example, who now are doing thermal sensing. Or I had brand new companies who said, oh yeah, we're a thermal camera, who started in 2020, right? So it was really hard to believe like who's real, who's not, who's going to stick around, who's going to just capitalize and then walk away, right? Like I couldn't figure that out. I didn't want to just send anything to my customer and say, hey, look at this and you should buy it. I wanted to really vet. So what's interesting is that I was already doing that. So I did that with Alcatraz, and I had literally, and we actually recorded the call because I would record these and then we'd send them out internally with JCI so people can learn whatever we learned on that call. And I had 20 people on. I think I invited like 35. I had one external mentor of mine on the call who I was already just inviting. He was a consultant. And then all the people internally on that call with me. We had a lunch hour. Vince and his team came and presented to us. And I'm telling you, I never thought I was going to go work for Alcatraz at that moment. I was like just there to learn who they were. We did 20 questions. We do rapid fire Q&A, like really make it like uncomfortable for them. Ideally to stumble so we can find their weak points to know if this technology is going to work or not, just based on how they present. And I'm telling you, they knocked it out of the ballpark. Like just when they put the architecture slide up and showed my text, like how easy it was to install this thing. Like I was getting text messages the whole time saying like, Sarah, how'd you find this? Like, this is amazing. This is insane. Like now we need to try it. Now we got to do it. And like the fact that my people came to me and said like, oh, I want to go try this and I want to go do this, told me it was worth the risk. Wow. So my decision, like that night, Vince had basically was just like, hey, like what you did today and how you brought everyone together and, you know, gave us this exposure with your company, like tells us what you could possibly do for us. You know, can you come join us? And I definitely thought about it for a few minutes. And then I said, yeah, let's do it.
All in.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool. It was whether it goes great or it doesn't, it's something I think that needed to happen. I'm excited because now I get to really do what I want with the experience I've had and make this mine, you know, like working with you guys. Hopefully we bring up, you know, we can partner at some point, you know, because it's getting me so much exposure to this market that I've never had before, that I never thought I would ever get. So it's really cool.
Absolutely.
So as a director of channel sales, you've got a national footprint, right?
Yeah. Well, global.
Global. Okay.
Yeah. So we're nurturing partners from across the world. And our product there's interest from across the world. So we're really having to manage a lot. I mean, it's really only 2 of us right now. We have our director of BD me as director of channel for sales. And then we just hired one more person to be director of enterprise. So we're really building foundationally, like ground up right now.
Wow.
So luckily, like the interest was there where the end users were already ready and love it and want it. So it wasn't like true lead generation or demand gen for us. It's just more about, okay, we need to start organizing and managing what we do have and do it right. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And so Sarah, I mean, having made this, career shift so quickly and really diving into and clearly loving tech and everything that you do in this space. Now with your also Innovation Nation podcast, is that something that is paired with Alcatraz where you speak specifically to those technologies? Is it just speaking on technology in general? What is the primary purpose of your podcast?
Yeah. So, I started it because kind of when I was explaining to you about those tech discovery calls I was doing with the manufacturers, I actually started loving it. Like I would be kind of this, like, I was like MC of the tech call, like for JCI. And it was like really fun for me. And I loved kind of putting these people on the spot and just asking really raw questions and kind of challenging questions. And it kind of just sparked my interest in taking this further and educating anyone out there and helping everybody in the market, like have the conversations that they may not have the opportunity to have, but want to hear about or learn from. So I met Lee also during all this, you know, Lee, and I met Lee Otis, and he had brought me on to interview me as like a young professional for his podcast. And I was just casually telling him, oh, I'd love to do a podcast one day. You know, I love doing the tech calls, and just because I will always be an integrator at heart. I will always wear that hat no matter what, whether I work for one tech company, like one product or another. That's just how I've been trained and how I think. So I always wanted to like still learn, because now working at one company with one tech, I have to kind of focus on that. So I wanted to find a way to keep doing what I love doing also. And so Lee and I were chatting. I was just like, hey, I want to do a podcast at some point. He goes, oh, can I do it for you? And I was like, sure. I don't even know what it means. I don't know what producing means. I don't even know how to record. I don't even have equipment. Like I literally, Katie, like you have it all figured out. I had no idea what to do. So Lee had coached me and guided me and just basically said, Sarah, go have your conversations, bring me content, and we'll figure it out. Wow. And it's just evolved. It's so cool. Like we're getting so much exposure, and I want to bring you guys on soon. And, you know, people are reaching out now that I would have never met before, which is really fun. And it's cool. It's not like with Alcatraz. I will never just make an Alcatraz commercial. We talk about it. It comes up. People will like bring it up to me on the call, and I'll talk to it. But really, it's not for that. I think it's more for me, like from a personal perspective, I want to make a name for myself in the industry and just learn as much as I can. So it's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
It's fun.
And you don't know this yet, but in 5 minutes, me and Matt are going to do 20 rapid fire questions. Just shoot them at you. So just get ready.
Okay. All right. I thought, if I give it, I got to be able to take it. So
yeah, right. Exactly. That's great. And it really is kind of amazing. You were doing that with JCI, not knowing that you could eventually transfer that knowledge and that expertise of things you were garnering into a podcast that you could eventually do. Just one, from a passion of learning and educating, but then two, being able to bolster your own credentials in the space you were just kind of thrust into.
Yeah, of course. I think JCI did a lot of things for me. And Matt, you know how it is. We're many entrepreneurs, like we really have to figure it out. And, the ones who figure it out last. And I think that it's just such a big company. It's easy to get lost. And it really taught me, like JCI taught me not only how to be like a really good technical seller, but just how to have drive and go after things I want to go after. Like anytime I wanted to learn something, they let me learn. The trainings they would put us through were phenomenal. There's a lot of good that came out of JCI, and truly, like I have so much to thank, not just because of the company, but the people I met along the way who really helped me figure out what I like, like what I want to do. And I started in physical security, and I'm back in it now, like full blown. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Comes full circle.
It did, and it has, with Matt and I sitting here and you hanging out, making new friends, and I'm excited.
Yeah, we are too. And well, Matt, before we wrap, do you have any other questions for Sarah?
I can just see a lot of use cases for this technology, though. I mean, particularly in transportation. And I did about 20 years of work at the CDC, and I'm just thinking in some of the, maybe not particularly the high containment, but some of the other biosafety levels like BSL-2 labs, which are, you're not in the spacesuit. I think in like those types of vertical markets, I think I can really see potential there. And then that high-end residential, which is something that Symphony has. It's really a sweet spot for Symphony, that MDU, that multifamily, high-end residential mixed use. I really think that there's a lot of possibility there.
Yeah, there's actually, you say high-end residential, that's actually also gaining a massive interest right now. That does play in with what you guys do. They like how it looks, and they think it's like really sleek, and they like that it works too, obviously. I mean, but that's standard that it works. Because a lot of the stuff out there too is kind of clunky and not the most aesthetically pleasing. So the rock itself is pretty good looking, if I do say myself.
No, I'm excited about it. I'm excited to see it work.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited to show you guys. And if you guys ever, want to learn more or talk more, let me know, Katie. And I'm always here to be a part of the conversation.
Absolutely. And Sarah, too, if anybody listening into this episode wants to learn more about you, about Alcatraz, and listen into the Innovation Nation podcast, where might they do that?
So LinkedIn is where I'm at the most. All my content for all three go there. So obviously Alcatraz, you can look us up online. Alcatraz.ai is our website. Very easy to remember. But I'm on LinkedIn. Sarah Lawler-Muzquiz is my last name. And connect with me, say hi, send me a note. I give you my phone number, but probably not the best idea. But always welcome to meet new people, and love expanding the network as much as I can. So
thank you all for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more about our guest and their company, check out the show notes for the relevant links. If you would like to learn more about us here at Symphony, of course, subscribe to our podcast on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook at Symphony Technology Solutions, and on Instagram at Symphony Tech Solutions. Here at Symphony, our ultimate goal is to make harmonious music out of all the technological noise. And we hope today's episode helped in doing just that. See you next time.